High Admiral Zextar stood before the Imperial Nexian Council, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's purple light. His motion sensors detected the subtle vibrations of anticipation from the assembled counselors, all 12 of the Empire's most powerful leaders, their bodies suspended in their traditional meditation spheres. "My esteemed council," he began, his translator converting his electromagnetic pulses into the formal language of court, "I come bearing news of a newly discovered civilization in the Orion Arm. They call themselves, humans." The council chamber's atmosphere shifted as data streams began flowing between the counselors' neural networks. High Counselor Vinshaw's meditation sphere descended slightly, a sign of mild interest. "Another primitive species requiring guidance into the fold of our empire?" "Not exactly," Zextar replied, initiating his holographic display. Images of Earth's cities, military installations, and orbital stations filled the chamber. "They've achieved spaceflight independently, developed basic fusion technology, and have colonized their solar system." However, he paused, his sensors detecting growing concern among the council, they remain confined to their local region. Their FTL capabilities are rudimentary at best. "Yet you bring this to our attention?" Counselor Malrek's voice carried the harmonic undertones of skepticism. "Surely our border fleets can handle the standard integration protocols." Zextar's crystalline structure flickered with unease. "There's more. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual patterns in their development. They've progressed from primitive combustion engines to fusion drives in less than 2 centuries. Their adaptive capabilities are unprecedented." The chamber filled with dismissive harmonic waves. "Speed of development means nothing without proper guidance," Vinshaw declared. "What are their defensive capabilities?" "Limited. Their ships are small, primarily designed for solar system travel. Their weapons are based on primitive kinetic and nuclear principles." However, Zextar tried to continue, but was interrupted by Malrek's sharp harmonic burst. "Then I fail to see the concern, Admiral. They are clearly in need of our leadership. Their rapid development only proves they require immediate integration before they become a danger to themselves and others." Zextar's sensory apparatus detected something his logical processors couldn't quite quantify, a pattern in human behavior that defied imperial prediction matrices. "Counselors, I must advise caution. Our xenopsychologists have noted concerning traits. They possess an unusual capacity for adaptation and a historical pattern of turning disadvantages into advantages. Moreover, their response to our initial diplomatic probes was unexpected." The holographic display shifted to show footage from the first contact meeting. The human delegates, despite their obvious technological inferiority, had shown no signs of awe or submission. Instead, they had proposed equal trading rights and mutual defense pacts. Such audacity, Vinshaw's harmonics resonated with amusement. "They truly don't understand their place in the greater order." "Precisely my concern," Zextar pressed. "They don't behave according to any of our established species integration models. When our envoys suggested a protected status within the Empire, their response was." He hesitated, they laughed. The council chamber erupted in discordant harmonics of surprise and indignation. Laughter at an imperial offer was unprecedented in the Empire's 10,000-year history. Then perhaps, Counselor Malrek's voice cut through the chaos, "They need a demonstration of proper imperial authority. Admiral, you will prepare an integration fleet. Show these humans their place in the natural order." "Counselor, I must object. My analysis suggests." "Your analysis is noted, Admiral," Vinshaw interrupted, "but the Council has decided. These humans have shown disrespect to imperial authority. Such behavior cannot be tolerated, lest other species begin to question the natural order. You have your orders." Zextar's crystalline form dimmed slightly in submission, but his processors continued to analyze the unusual patterns he'd observed in human behavior. As he prepared to leave the chamber, a final transmission from Earth's representatives played in his memory banks. "We understand you have a vast empire, Admiral. We understand you have technology we can barely comprehend. But understand this, humanity doesn't kneel. We never have. We never will. If you force this issue, you'll learn why our history is written in the blood of empires who thought we would be an easy conquest." As he exited the chamber, Zextar's probability matrices calculated a disturbing outcome: the Empire had just made its first fatal mistake in 10,000 years. But like so many great powers before them, they were too blinded by their own supremacy to see it. The integration fleet would launch within a standard solar cycle. The Empire would learn about humanity's true nature, but Zextar feared the lesson would come at a terrible price. The Imperial Integration Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, a massive armada of crystalline vessels that glittered like stars against the void. Fleet Commander Reval observed the distant blue marble of Earth on her command display with what her species considered amusement. The humans' early warning systems had already detected them, no doubt, but that was part of the plan. Let them see the might they faced. "Status report," she commanded, her crystalline form pulsing with anticipated victory. 17,000 ships deployed in standard conquest formation, her second reported. No significant defense platforms detected. Minimal orbital infrastructure. Scattered readings of primitive fusion drives in the asteroid belt. The humans appear to be retreating. Reval's sensory nodes tingled with satisfaction. As expected. Begin the approach. Standard intimidation protocols. But something wasn't right. Lieutenant Kexri, her sensor specialist, emanated patterns of confusion. "Commander, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system. They're difficult to classify." "Explain." "The readings suggest thousands of small objects, but they're employing some form of technological camouflage we've never encountered. They're visible one moment, gone the next, as if." Kexri's crystalline form flickered with uncertainty, as if they're learning to evade our scanning methods in real time. Reval dismissed the concern. "Primitive attempts at stealth technology. Nothing our systems can't handle. Continue the advance." The fleet moved forward in perfect formation, a testament to Imperial might. But as they crossed the orbit of Mars, the first signs of trouble appeared. "Multiple small objects approaching," Kexri announced. "They're accelerating far beyond expected human capabilities." Before Reval could respond, the objects revealed themselves, swarms of what appeared to be simple metallic spheres, each no larger than a human fighter craft. The Imperial fleet's defensive systems registered them as minimal threats, until they began to change. The spheres split apart, reforming into complex geometric patterns. Each fragment sprouted what looked like primitive projectile weapons, except they weren't primitive at all. They were housing something far more sophisticated. "Impossible," Reval whispered as her sensors revealed the truth. "They've weaponized dark matter containment fields." The human weapons opened fire. Where Imperial shields should have held firm, they instead collapsed inward, the dark matter containment fields creating microscopic singularities that torn through crystalline hulls like paper. Ships began dying by the hundreds. "Evasive action," Reval commanded, but it was too late. The human weapons were everywhere, and worse, they were adapting. Each time the Imperial fleet adjusted their shields, the weapons changed their attack patterns. "Commander," her tactical officer's voice carried genuine fear now. "We're detecting massive energy signatures from the asteroid belt." The asteroids themselves began to move, revealing what the humans had hidden inside them, massive railgun platforms, each powered by antimatter reactors. They opened fire, launching projectiles at appreciable fractions of light speed. The kinetic impacts alone were devastating, but each projectile also carried a payload of what the humans called von Neumann machines, self-replicating robots that began consuming disabled Imperial ships to create more weapons. This was a trap, Reval realized too late. The entire system is a trap. Her realization was interrupted by a transmission, broadcast on all frequencies. A human voice, calm and almost apologetic, "We tried to warn you. Humanity doesn't build empires, we build defense systems. What you're seeing is only the automated response. Our actual military hasn't even engaged yet." As if on cue, new signatures appeared throughout the system. The human ships that had been retreating had actually been moving into predetermined attack positions. They were smaller than Imperial vessels, more lightly armed according to conventional metrics, but they moved with a coordination and precision that defied Imperial tactical doctrine. "All ships, fall back," Reval ordered, but the humans had thought of that too. The hyperspace exit points they'd used to enter the system were now blocked by gravity well generators hidden in what they dismissed as communication satellites. "Commander," her second's voice was barely a whisper, "we've lost contact with over 60% of the fleet. The humans are broadcasting on all frequencies again." The same calm voice returned, "Your ships are already lost. But your crews don't have to be. We've calculated safe corridors through our defense grid for your escape pods. Use them. Return to your empire. And deliver this message: Earth is not a prize to be claimed. It's not a resource to be exploited. It's humanity's home, and we've had a very, very long time to prepare for visitors like you." Reval stared at her tactical display, watching the elegant complexity of the human trap unfold. They hadn't just prepared for an invasion, they had anticipated every possible Imperial response, created countermeasures for technologies they shouldn't even have known about, and turned their entire solar system into an interlocking defense system that was still adapting, still learning, still becoming more effective with each passing moment. As she gave the order to abandon ship, Reval understood what Admiral Zextar had tried to warn them about. The humans hadn't been developing slowly, they'd been preparing thoroughly. The Empire had walked straight into a web that had been centuries in the making, and they were about to learn the true price of underestimating humanity. The Imperial Council chamber had never been so silent. The normal harmonic resonance of 12 crystalline beings in contemplation was replaced by a stillness that spoke of shock and disbelief. The holographic display at the chamber's center showed the devastating results of their simple integration mission: over 10,000 ships lost, their crews scattered across human rescue stations throughout the Sol system. High Counselor Vinshaw's voice finally broke the silence. How? How did a species that hasn't even colonized beyond their solar system defeat our most advanced fleet? Admiral Zextar stood before them, his crystalline form dim with exhaustion after days of analyzing the disaster. They were ready for us. Not just ready, they had been preparing for centuries. Every piece of technology we encountered was specifically designed to counter our advantages. The holographic display shifted to show captured footage from the battle. The Council watched as human weapons systematically dismantled Imperial ships, adapting to each countermeasure almost before it was deployed. But their technology was primitive, Counselor Malrek protested. Their ships still use fusion drives. That's what they wanted us to think, Zextar replied. We've analyzed their primitive technology more carefully now. Those fusion drives? They're decoys. Their real propulsion systems use controlled quantum tunneling. They didn't develop slower than other species, they developed differently. While we focused on perfecting our crystalline technology, they explored countless alternative paths. New images appeared, human rescue ships picking up Imperial escape pods, providing medical care to crystalline beings they'd been fighting moments before. And there's something else, Zextar continued. Something our xenopsychologists are still struggling to understand. The display showed human doctors working alongside Imperial medical staff, combining their knowledge to treat injuries neither side fully understood. They're helping our people, Vinshaw observed, harmonic confusion evident in her voice. Yes, Zextar confirmed. When we spoke with their leaders after the battle, they said something remarkable. They said, "We'll fight with everything we have to remain free, but we won't abandon those who can no longer fight. They're treating our wounded, repairing damaged crystalline matrices, even offering to return our crews in ships better equipped for their needs than our own escape pods. A trick, Malrek declared. They seek to lower our guard. No, another voice cut in. Everyone turned to see Commander Reval enter the chamber, her crystalline form still bearing the scars of battle. Forgive my interruption, counselors, but I've spent time in their care. What the Admiral says is true. The humans, they're different from any species we've encountered. She approached the central display, interfacing with it to show her own recordings. Watch their medical staff. They work until they collapse from exhaustion, then others take their place. Their engineers are reverse engineering our technology not to steal it, but to better understand how to heal our wounded. They view our defeat not as a victory to celebrate, but as a tragedy that should have been avoided. The chamber filled with discordant harmonics as the council members struggled to process this information. How do we proceed against such a species? Veen Shah finally asked. Our standard protocols. Our standard protocols are useless, Reval interrupted, protocol forgotten in the urgency of her message. I watched them adapt to our weapons in real time. Even now, they're probably developing countermeasures for everything they haven't seen yet. But more importantly, they're learning about us. Not just our technology, they're studying our biology, our culture, our way of thinking. To what end? Malrek demanded. To understand us, Zexstar answered. Because that's what humans do. They don't just fight, they learn. Every engagement teaches them. Every interaction changes them. And now. He paused, his sensors detecting a new transmission from Earth. The holographic display shifted to show a human diplomatic delegation. Their leader, a woman with gray hair and eyes that seemed to hold both kindness and steel, began to speak, to the Imperial Council. We have finished treating your wounded and are ready to return them. We've also prepared a comprehensive analysis of the recent conflict, including suggestions for how both our species can avoid such confrontations in the future. We remain open to diplomatic relations, provided they're conducted as equals. The choice of what happens next is yours. The council chamber erupted in confused harmonics. This wasn't how conquered species behaved. This wasn't how conquerors behaved. This wasn't how anyone behaved. Don't you see? Zexstar asked the stunned council. This is why I urged caution. Humans don't think like we do. They don't fight like we do. They don't win like we do. And now they're offering us a choice that no species in our history has ever offered, the chance to learn from our mistake without paying the full price for it. The council fell silent again, but this time it was a silence of realization. They had tried to conquer humanity and failed spectacularly. But in failing, they had discovered something far more valuable than a new territory to add to their empire. They had found a species that could teach them how to be better than they were. The question was, were they willing to learn? General Sarah Chen stood in Earth's Combined Military Command Center, studying the massive holographic display showing Imperial fleet movements across the galaxy. After the disastrous first invasion attempt, the Empire had split into factions. Some advocated for peace with humanity. Others, led by the hardline Crystal Supremacy movement, demanded revenge. Status report, she commanded, her eyes never leaving the display. Colonel Marcus Rodriguez stepped forward. 5 years after the Battle of the Quantum Mirrors, the Sol system had changed beyond recognition. Crystalline structures orbited alongside human stations, their once rigid forms now flowing with organic curves that would have been impossible under the old imperial doctrine. But the greatest changes weren't physical, they were philosophical. High Counselor Veen Shah, one of the few original council members who had embraced change, stood in Earth's primary diplomatic chamber alongside General Sarah Chen. They watched as a new generation of hybrid ships launched from the Jupiter shipyards, vessels that combined human adaptability with crystalline precision. Did you ever imagine this outcome? Veenshaw asked, her crystalline form shifting through patterns that would have been considered heretical in the old empire. When we first encountered your species? Sarah shook her head. We prepared for war, not transformation. But that's humanity's greatest strength, we adapt to the unexpected. The chamber's displays showed scenes from across known space. The old empire had fractured, but something new had emerged from its shards. Some called it the Federation of Adaptive Worlds. Others simply called it the future. The latest reports from the outer colonies are inspiring, Veenshaw noted. The fusion of human and crystalline thinking has led to breakthroughs we never thought possible. Our young ones especially, they're developing abilities that would have been suppressed under the old system. It was true. The children of both species were growing up together, learning from each other. Human children were developing ways to interface with crystalline technology through pure thought, while young crystalline beings were learning to alter their forms in ways that reflected their emotions rather than rigid doctrine. Admiral Zextar's education initiative has been particularly successful, Sarah added. Who would have thought that teaching crystalline beings about human art and music would unlock their potential for creative thinking? The displays shifted to show the former imperial capital world. Where once stood monuments to perfect order, now rose structures that celebrated the beauty of controlled chaos. The crystal supremacist movement had failed not through defeat in battle, but through irrelevance. Their rigid ideology simply couldn't compete with the vibrancy of adaptation and change. We're receiving the final numbers from the Refugee Integration Program, a young aide announced, herself a hybrid, her partially crystalline form glowing with human warmth. Over 12 billion former imperial citizens have chosen to undergo the quantum resonance therapy. The waiting lists for human cultural education are still growing. Veenshaw's form shimmered with what Sarah had learned to recognize as profound emotion. We thought we were coming to teach you civilization, the former counselor admitted. Instead, you taught us how to live. Not taught, Sarah corrected gently. Shared. That's the real lesson in all of this. Humanity never wanted to conquer or to teach. We wanted to share, to learn, to grow together. The Empire's mistake wasn't just underestimating our military capability, it was underestimating our capacity for cooperation. The chamber's doors opened to admit Admiral Zextar, his crystalline form now a complex blend of traditional imperial structure and flowing organic patterns. The first graduates of the Joint Evolution Program are ready, he announced. They're calling themselves the Quantum Generation. They can shift between crystalline and organic forms at will, think in both linear and adaptive patterns, and their problem-solving capabilities exceed anything either of our species could achieve alone. Sarah smiled. And to think, this all started because someone thought humanity would be an easy conquest. The price of underestimation, Veenshaw agreed, turned out to be the cost of admission to a better future. Outside the chamber, Earth's sun set on a solar system transformed. Ships of impossible design danced between planets. Stations that combined mathematical precision with organic beauty orbited in harmony. And in schools and homes across human and former imperial space, children of both species learned a new truth, that strength comes not from imposing order or embracing chaos, but from finding the balance between them. The Empire had come to teach humanity their place in the galaxy. Instead, humanity had shown them that no species' place was fixed, that the true power of intelligence lay not in maintaining perfect order, but in the endless dance of adaptation and growth. The price of underestimating humanity had been the end of the Empire. The reward had been the beginning of something far greater, a future where the boundaries between species were not walls to maintain, but bridges to cross. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, other civilizations were beginning to take notice.